Well, students, we're gonna glaze these pots today. The first thing is putting some clear glaze on it. It will look pink, but it's really clear. I'm gonna put a drop in each of your pots, like this, and then you're gonna use this big brush, and we're just gonna spread it out. Now you'll notice that the glaze is gonna dry pretty fast, and I want to make sure that I get all the way to the edges, and then I'm going to kind of use my brush, kind of like a stamp, to go around the edges. But I don't want to let it drip over the side. So any of these drips I'm kind of leaving alone so they can kind of soak up and dry a little bit. I'm trying to cover up any of the orange spots of clay. So I'm going to let it dry just a little bit. And then once it dries a little bit, then I'm gonna brush it a little bit more. But you wanna be careful not to brush it too much, because if you brush it too much, it will actually wipe the glaze off and then it won't stick to those spots anymore. So here, I'm brushing that out. That's kind of like adding a second coat of glaze. I'm gonna let it dry. So part of doing a good job glazing is being patient. So it takes a little bit to dry, and I would like you to hold your brush in your hand so we're not getting glaze on our desk, and keep your pot in your hand so that you don't drop it on the floor. And then you can see there's a couple little spots here. I can brush those out, and then I'm just gonna let it dry. Now if everything looks like it's brushed out, you've gone all the way out to the edges, and you're being careful not to continue brushing it while it's drying, then I'll come by and I'll take this brush and I will give you this little brush. And with this little brush, we're gonna put a pattern on it. So you can take this black glaze that I'm gonna give you and your little brush, and I'm holding it like a pencil, and I'm holding my pot in my hand. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick two lines that I like. So here, I probably should let this dry a little bit more. It'll be like a really light pink. It's almost white when it's dry, so I might just wait to pass out the little brushes until they're definitely dry. So once they're dry, then I would like you to put a little bit of glaze on your brush, not getting it all over this metal part. And I'm gonna start kind of in the middle. I'm gonna pick two lines, and I think I'm gonna do broken and dotted. Your lines do not have to be the same as mine. So here I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna start on the side, and I'm gonna kind of balance my hand, and I'm gonna do a line, and then I'm gonna dip it back in the glaze. Do a line, dip it back in the glaze. Because if you don't get enough on your brush, it won't make the line very dark. You won't be able to see it. So when it goes through the kiln, it kind of burns some of the glaze off and you won't be able to see it. So that's why I got it nice and black, and it goes from one side to the other. Now I'm gonna do dotted. So I think I'm gonna do a little dot, and then I'm gonna do big dot. So I do a dot, and then I dip it back in the glaze. Do a dot, dip it back in the glaze. Do a dot, dip it back in the glaze. You can see that I'm taking my time. There's no reason to rush. And I'm gonna go all the way to the other side. Then we'll do my next line. So I've got broken, dotted, then I'm gonna do broken, dip it back in the glaze, dip it back in the glaze, all the way till I get to the other side. Looks like I even have space for just a tiny couple of dots right here. Now that I have that half done, I'm gonna turn it around, and then I'm gonna do this half. So we'll do the same thing. I've got broken and dotted, so I'm gonna do a big dot, and then I'm gonna do small dot. Big dot, small dot. Please take your time. I don't expect you to go as quickly as I'm going. I've had a little bit of practice. And you can see that I didn't go all the way to the edge. There's a little bit of space here to put one more, so make sure you get all the way to the sides. I'm also trying to leave a little bit of space between the dots so then I don't end up having them drip together. So after every line, I just dip it back in the glaze. sometimes I'll have students think that they're done right here. I still have room for probably 2 more lines, so I still have room for probably another broken and another dotted. So here, I want to just make sure I get all the way to the side of my pot. And sometimes you have to turn it a little bit to get it. And then I've got space right here. When you have your pot done and your pattern is done, I will come by and I'll pick up your brushes. It would be okay if you set your pot down if you're letting it dry, but just hold on to your brush so that you don't drop it on the floor, or so that it doesn't tip this cup over, because if I were to put it in the cup and let go of the brush, it would spill the cup. So just please keep your brush in your hand, but if you're letting your pot dry, you can just set it down. You can see that I didn't get any glaze on the back, only glaze on the top or on the front. And then this one is an example of what it'll look like when it's done. So this has dotted and zigzag lines, but it just follows a pattern. And then that pink glaze becomes a clear shiny. All right, let's have fun glazing our pots with a pattern.